Kentucky, this is Mary Jo Perino. Tonight, Lexington protesters pledge to keep going. Plus, a look at demonstrations going on in Kentucky's smaller towns. And the NCAA lays out a possible path to football in the fall. All that and more is next on Hey Kentucky. Welcome to Hey Kentucky with LEX 18 Sports Director Keith Farmer. You had me at football in the fall.
I think it's going to happen. I'm starting to feel like it is.
I know, me too. It's exciting. Protests, meanwhile, in downtown Lexington continued for an 11th straight night yesterday. Turnout was lower than some other nights, but that did not dampen the passion. Barricades were set up around police headquarters, but officers were nowhere to be seen. Protesters say they'll be out every night for the rest of the month until the department meets their demands for more accountability and oversight. And to fire Chaplain Donovan Stewart, an officer who's accused of beating a teenager with autism last year at the Fayette Mall. One protester addressed Mayor Linda Gordon and Police Chief Lawrence Weathers directly.
Till they meet our demands, Linda and Lawrence. Y'all want us to take it elsewhere and disrupt the whole city? We coming. Y'all know we shut down the mall when it was Christmas time. Y'all know we did. We're going to keep coming till we get justice, and we come with the power and the wisdom of our ancestors.
Similar to many nights in downtown Lexington, the protests remained peaceful. And Keith, I sure hope it stays that way as long as the protesters keep coming out and showing up, which I hope they also do as well.
Yeah, which I think it's this core group, right? You mentioned how the numbers were maybe a little bit down, but it's this core passionate group that seems like it's going to keep coming out. And like you said, those are the ones that are going to do it peacefully. And so I have faith that this group's going to make it happen and keep going.
I do too. All right, Kentucky's Mitch McConnell is criticizing calls to defund police institutions. The Senate Majority Leader says peaceful protesters rightly do not want to be lumped in with a subset of looters and rioters who seek destruction. But using that logic, McConnell says the vast majority of brave police officers cannot be lumped in with the very worst examples of human behavior either.
But instead, we're already seeing outlandish calls: defund the police or abolish the police, take root within the left-wing leadership class. I'm all for social work and mental health, but call me old-fashioned. I think you may actually want a police officer to stop a criminal and arrest him before we try to work through his feelings.
McConnell is also calling out what he sees as a double standard in how the media treats those who protested the COVID-19 restrictions versus the current protesters who are not social distancing. Keith, part of the reason is because if you're protesting the coronavirus and you're not wearing a mask, you're going to keep people unemployed and out of work longer not wearing a mask. So the two things are completely different. But I do have a hard time understanding how we don't have a police department. We have to have police.
I agree with that. I'm having a hard time understanding this defunding and everything about it because you're hearing a lot of sides of just totally getting rid of police, and you're hearing others just defund and let's make sure they're out there policing and not policing communities so hard, just coming to your aid when you need help. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about this one.
And there has to be, because it's impossible to not, I think, to not have a police department. I just don't see how that's possible. All right, Governor Beshear has announced plans to begin addressing systemic inequalities in healthcare, education, and policing in Kentucky. The governor says the COVID-19 crisis has laid bare the inequities in the state's healthcare system. Yesterday, he announced a new effort to get 100% of people in our Black communities signed up for some form of coverage.
That could be Medicaid, that could be private insurance if they qualify for Medicare, but aren't otherwise signed up for it. But every single individual to be able to have that type of coverage. By allowing this type of inequality to exist for as long as it has, we see African Americans dying at twice the rate that they make up of the population. And it simply can't be allowed to continue any longer.
The announcement comes as Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman also revealed proposals to address inequalities in education. And Executive Cabinet Secretary J. Michael Brown proposed an 8-hour online training course for law enforcement to cover things like use of force and implicit bias. Keith, these are meaningful solutions to issues. Maybe not complete solutions, but they address them.
It's the start, right? I mean, it's what everybody is asking for, to have the conversations that are needed to make sure there is equality, and that everybody, I can't imagine what that feeling must be like to have a sick family member and not know if you can take them in to get them taken care of, even for basic needs.
Absolutely. So these are steps in the right direction, I hope. After reflecting on the nationwide protests, Coach Cal has come up with one way he can help. On the latest edition of his Coffee with Cal Facebook series, John Calipari shared his plans to establish an executive development program for minorities in the athletics department at Kentucky. The program would include internships in fields like media relations, radio, TV, marketing, management, compliance, and strength and conditioning.
And what I hope is other universities look at it and say, we should do the same. Maybe some businesses in Lexington I grab and say, why don't you do the same? And all of a sudden, we've created access and opportunity. We can't give you a job, but we can give you the path to the job. And I think that's what I'd like to do.
Cal has already pitched the idea to UK and reached out to ESPN's Maria Taylor for advice. Taylor has her own foundation to help minorities in radio and TV and is already offering to send candidates his way. This is another great step in the right direction.
I love this because when he was on his webinar call the other day with several coaches, he was like, you know, how do we get more African Americans into administration, into becoming presidents of universities, to becoming head coaches? And he was a listener, which is what everybody's been asking. Be a listener and then, you know, go out and make action. And he has done that by developing this internship, which I think is awesome. I mean, you did an internship, I did an internship. It gives you a taste of the job to see if you want to do it. And he's giving a path to some kids now that can see this possibly happen in the future to becoming an athletic director or a president.
Yep, I love it. And he's got good people around him. Dwayne Peavy would be one who is an invaluable resource to people that want to go into athletic administration. All right. We've talked about the powerful images of the UK football team participating in a Black Lives Matter protest last week. Coach Mark Stoops led some members of his staff and a large group of players through downtown Lexington Friday. Today, junior defensive end Josh Paschal got on a conference call with the media to share his thoughts about that experience.
I feel like the team is united. We're all fighting for the same cause, and we all were on Friday also. And I know that every single one of my teammates, no matter the color of their skin, they all have our backs, specifically the black players. We know we have the support of our white teammates, and vice versa. You know, we're a brotherhood, and we really showed that on Friday.
Meanwhile, former Wildcats Ravi Moss and Eric Daniels have announced plans for a peaceful protest this Saturday afternoon. It will begin at 1 p.m. in the Joe Kraft Center parking lot and go to Rupp Arena and back. And Keith, they're going to have speakers, and it should be a really important event.
Great idea from the former Wildcats, and we all know that Eric Daniels just recently was dealing with some racism. So it's wonderful to see these two guys get out and lead the charge. It'd be great to see some other former Wildcats, be it football, basketball, baseball, whatever, get out there and also be the face of this and to help lead some of these protests as well.
Yes, I mean, we did a story here on what Eric Daniels dealt with as the coach at Woodford County for the girls team this year. And so that's part of the reason why he is marching. All right, we've been waiting for months to find out if the 2020 college football season will start on time. Tonight, there are indications that it might if the pandemic permits. Kentucky recently released a hype video to get True Blue fans pumped up. And as we've said, players are slowly returning to campus this month. This comes as an NCAA oversight committee is working on a plan that would allow the season to begin in the fall. It starts with a 6-week practice plan, which is currently being circulated to conference offices and athletic departments for feedback. Keith, there was no need for a hype video. We all want football to come back. You don't need to get us excited. But what do you think of the plan put in place, or potentially put in place, of getting the 6 weeks of practice in and then starting the season?
See, all I needed was that one picture that the Kentucky football team put out of that beautiful sunny Kroger Field, and that's all I needed. That was my hype picture. And yeah, I like the idea. I like how programs seem to be coming back slowly, taking it bit by bit. Kentucky, Josh mentioned today how they have to go through practice, and trust me, they are being very cautious there. And I am really, again, starting to feel like we're going to have football in the fall, because I feel like, barring some more things happening, where COVID starts to build up again, I really think that we're going to see the entire season.
I am desperate for that to be the case, so let's hope. All right, up next on Hey Kentucky, we get a perspective on protests in small towns in the state. Jeff Moreland with the Danville Advocate Messenger will tell us how demonstrations have unfolded in his community. Stay with us.